It's all very well for you, but I can't cycle to work.
There's no way I'd cycle to work.
I can't cycle to work.
I can't ride to work. I can't cycle to work.
Okay, that is enough, right? There are probably 100 different reasons why you think you can't ride to work, when in reality, could you? In this video, we are going to go through the most common reasons why people think they can't ride to work, and then, drawing on decades of experience, see if we can give you some tips to help you overcome those hurdles, because it is absolutely worth doing.
Why? As if you need reminding, people who cycle to work live longer, healthier, happier lives. It's been shown time and again in huge amounts of research that exercise that you get from cycling to work reduces your risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancers, depression. The list literally goes on and on.
Plus, the more people who cycle, the nicer our environment will be. So we'll have better air quality, lower noise levels, less chance of getting squashed anytime you're not in a car. Plus, if you literally can't ride to work, then there will be less traffic on the road, so actually that will make driving easier too. Heck, you might even be able to find a parking space. Now here on the Global Cycling Network, we've got loads of videos already, from ones that can help beginners find their feet in cycling, right through to experts looking for those final tips on how to do their epic commutes every day. So do make sure you subscribe to GCN, help support the channel, and have a look through the back catalogue whilst you're there. Anyway, back to the video. I hear you, cycling to work can be scary. Venturing into rush hour traffic certainly looks daunting when you're not used to it. Now, if some of that anxiety comes from the cycling itself and not feeling confident on two wheels, then that, I think, can be fixed quite simply. If you can put a little bit of time aside to actually just get more comfortable on your bike. Take your bike somewhere away from cars, perhaps to a park or a quiet residential street, and then just practice riding around, steering and braking and changing gear, taking your hands off the handlebars. All of those things will really help to make you feel more comfortable on the bike for when you venture into traffic. Secondly, the bike that you're riding might also be contributing to that feeling of nervousness. The type of bike, so for example, this one is a gravel bike, which is great for making you feel confident, particularly compared to a narrow racing bike. I mean, these tyres alone will help you crash through potholes, but then also the size of bike can be really important. If your bike is too big for you, it can be really difficult to reach the brakes, for example, so you're always feeling like you're on the edge of being out of control. Plus, the ground simply can feel a long way away from you if a bike is too big. I'm not suggesting here that you need to go out and spend pots of money on a brand new bike. If you want a new bike, then an old mountain bike is vastly underrated, in my opinion, for commuting around town. And plus, you can pick them up these days for next to nothing. I do wonder, though, whether sometimes this fear of cycling is actually just down to people's perspectives on what is safe and what isn't. So, for example, flying, travelling by an aeroplane, a lot of people are scared of that. I am, certainly. Every time I get on an aeroplane, I wonder if it's the last thing I'm going to do. But yet I would never, ever think that about driving. But yet the reality is that air travel is literally hundreds of times safer than car travel. I sort of feel like the same principle holds true with regards to people's perspective towards cycling as well. But yes, there are cyclists who are tragically killed or injured every year, and my heart honestly breaks every time I hear of another one. But yet at the same time, we don't even register the number of deaths that people suffer in cars. And actually the number is staggeringly high. In the USA alone, 40,000 people per year are killed in cars, as opposed to 1,000 on bikes. And yes, I appreciate there are a lot of people driving a lot of miles, but still, it should be food for thought. We are not safe in cars. Now, I appreciate that if you tell someone that you're feeling scared and their response is simply to say, well, don't be. That's not terribly helpful. But I do think sometimes we can try and rationalise our way out of a certain frame of mind. Now, I can't assure you that accidents won't happen when you're cycling, but I reckon it's far safer than you'd think. And also, remember what we talked about a moment ago as well, which is that when you're cycling, you're helping to live an active, healthier lifestyle, whereas in a car, you're sitting yourself to death. I can't cycle to work because there are no bike lanes, or the ones that we have are total crap, or the roads are simply too dangerous. Now, I hear you, I absolutely do. There are a lot of roads out there that technically we're allowed to cycle on, but they're frankly terrifying because they're too fast or they're too busy. And whilst I think in most countries around the world, dedicated bike infrastructure is improving, it is slow and painful work for the long-suffering people in our local authorities. Now, I can't promise miracles here, but I do think that if you're used to driving a car everywhere, you simply might not know about all of the other roads and indeed paths out there that might be running parallel or close to the ones that you usually drive on, but that are much more suitable for cycling. Let's take this as a case study, right? So this road is a super busy commuter route in and out of the city that I live in. For most people, it's probably the only road they know that goes in this direction. And you know what? It absolutely sucks to cycle up here. It's slow, it's hard, and it's full of cars. However, just there and just there are two really nice alternatives. Residential streets like this one can sometimes become cut-throughs or rat runs for car drivers, but the reality is, very frequently, they suck for driving. But yet, as you can see, they are so much nicer to ride on. Yes, it might take me an extra minute or two compared to the main road just over there, but I'd take that minute or two extra because this is genuinely just pleasant.
It might be that you only have one option and it is total crap, but please have a look at alternatives before you write it off. I reckon you might be surprised what you find.
I get it, cycling can be hard, plus bike seats can be really uncomfortable when you first start sitting on them. But over the years of working here at GCN, I have heard countless amazing and inspiring stories from people who weren't fit, who then got on a bike and gradually from 5 kilometers to 10 kilometers to 20 kilometers built up their strength and fitness. Everyone starts somewhere, and I firmly believe that you can do it too. Plus, it has got to be said that whilst they are expensive still, e-bikes are absolutely brilliant at making cycling easier and more accessible. I can't recommend them enough. And I think as well, if you quickly do some maths, you'll see that actually you can begin to offset the price of that e-bike by the amount of money that you're saving on petrol or gas. And in a lot of countries around the world, there are schemes set up to help make it easier to buy e-bikes as well. I mean, I even bought one for 500 quid off Amazon. And you know what? It was actually pretty good. Okay, sometimes it just is too far. I reckon I would struggle for motivation if my commute was more than like 25, 30 kilometers each way. And as you can probably tell, I really like bikes. But perhaps there is an alternative if you've got a mega long commute. Now, I suspect a lot of people might be commuting from a rural to an urban area or from city to city, in which case, perhaps rather than thinking of it as all or nothing, cycle everything or just drive, maybe you could split it. So you drive some, perhaps even most of it, and then cycle the rest. You'd still get the exercise. You would probably save time, certainly helping reduce congestion. You might save money on parking. Now, clearly this isn't going to work for everyone. You might not like the thought of carrying your bike on a rack on your car, or perhaps leaving your bike locked up somewhere overnight, waiting for you to drive there the next morning. But it might work for you, and it's definitely worth considering. It certainly does with people that I work with, some of whom do exactly this. Security, another big one. If you get to work and you haven't got anywhere safe to leave your bike, I get that it can be really stressful. Now, there are a couple of options here. Firstly, you could choose a commuter bike that's simply not worth stealing, or at least have a commuter bike that doesn't look like it's worth stealing, and yet still use a decent lock as well. And that's going to deter a lot of would-be thieves, I'm sure. The second option is to consider insurance. Now, that's not a cheap option, but if you shop around, you will, I'm sure, find a deal that allows you to insure your bike at home and away from the home as well, as long as your bike is locked to an immovable object like this one. I'm not entirely sure I would still be comfortable leaving this bike alone for an entire day, but theoretically I could, and I'd be covered for it. Lastly, it might well be that you have too much stuff to carry on your way to work. I mean, backpacks are great, but they are definitely limited in terms of how much weight you would want to carry, and size as well. Panniers could be fitted to most bikes, but again, they have got their limits, both in terms of volume and weight. And it might just be me, but whilst I can't ever get enough of seeing cargo bikes overloaded with tools and whatnot, it still might be that you have too much to carry. But do have a look at cargo bikes, because they're really cool. Now, as I said at the start, there might be 100 different reasons why you think you can't ride to work, and perhaps you literally can't. If that's the case, absolutely fine. I'm not issuing a challenge or a rallying cry, but if a few people do, it'll make the world of difference to you, for a start, to your health and well-being, as well as gradually improving the world around you as well. So remember, build up your confidence on the bike. Do a little bit of practice. Perhaps look at the bike that you're riding. Does it fit? Is it the right type of bike? Spend a bit of time researching alternative routes that are safe and quiet. And no one is not fit enough. Yes, perhaps you can't do it immediately, but start off little by little. Perhaps the commute to work is the goal and not the first step, but you will get there. Maybe look at e-bikes or splitting your commute so that part of it is in a car and part of it is on a bike. Whatever it is, it will absolutely be worth it. And remember as well, perspective. If there is one thing that you should be scared of, it's driving. Do not blame the bike. Now, let us know what you think about this in the comment section. Perhaps you've got some tips as well that might help people get started by commuting to work on a bike. Get involved in that comment section. I look forward to reading them.